The United States national debt has always been a matter of great concern and debate among policymakers. As the debt ceiling approaches, questions arise regarding the authority and power of the president to bypass Congress in addressing this critical issue. Proponents argue that Section 5 of the 14th Amendment grants the president the ability to circumvent Congress on matters related to the national debt. However, a careful examination of the 14th Amendment reveals that this interpretation is flawed. In reality, Section 5 of the 14th Amendment does not empower the president to unilaterally bypass Congress on decisions concerning the national debt ceiling. Understanding Section 5 of the 14th Amendment. Section 5 of the 14th Amendment states, "The Congress shall have power to enforce, by appropriate legislation, the provisions of this article." While this section empowers Congress to enact laws that ensure the enforcement of the 14th Amendment, it does not grant the president any independent authority to bypass Congress on matters related to the national debt. The historical context of the 14th Amendment further reinforces this interpretation. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868, primarily to address the aftermath of the Civil War and secure the rights of freed slaves. It aimed to provide constitutional protection against discriminatory laws and actions by states. The language and intent of the amendment are focused on civil rights, due process, and equal protection, not fiscal matters. To understand the original intent of the framers, we must examine the historical context surrounding the 14th Amendment's adoption. The framers intended to ensure that Congress, as the legislative body representing the people, retains the power to make crucial decisions regarding the national debt. The Constitution explicitly grants Congress the authority to borrow money on behalf of the United States in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2. This power signifies that the framers intended fiscal matters, including the national debt, to be within the domain of Congress. Supreme Court precedents. The Supreme Court's interpretation of the 14th Amendment further supports the notion that the president cannot bypass Congress on matters related to the national debt. In the case of Perry v. United States, 1935, the court held that the president cannot unilaterally invalidate or ignore congressional acts, including laws governing the national debt. The court explicitly stated that the validity of government bonds cannot be questioned and the government must pay its debt as it falls due. Furthermore, the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Inns v. Chadha, 1983, emphasized the principle of separation of powers. The court ruled that the president's power to veto legislation cannot be extended to decisions that are inherently legislative in nature. The national debt ceiling falls under Congress's legislative powers, and thus the president cannot bypass this authority. Contrary to the arguments put forth by some proponents, Section 5 of the 14th Amendment does not grant the president the power to bypass Congress on matters related to the national debt ceiling. The language, historical context, and Supreme Court precedents all converge to support the view that Congress retains exclusive authority over fiscal matters, including the national debt. The framers' intent was clear in establishing a system of checks and balances, with Congress at the center of fiscal decision-making. Upholding this principle ensures democratic accountability and prevents the concentration of power in a single branch of government. While debates surrounding the national debt and the appropriate course of action may continue, it is essential to recognize that bypassing Congress is not within the president's constitutional purview.